Well, when were you diagnosed with dyslexia, and how does it affect, or how would you overcome it? Because there's a lot of, there's contracts and paperwork involved. So what kind of helps you manage that and go through that?
So I was diagnosed in Australia. I was having difficulty in school, and
What got you into real estate? I know we actually joined at the same time,
yes.
but you were somewhere else, correct?
Yeah, I was with Remax before I joined Addison, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I mean, COVID happened, right? It kind of changed the world, changed everything. I went on leave with my work because we didn't know what was going on, and I was pretty happy at my previous job. I, was working for a print design studio and was making good money, traveling all over the world and whatnot. But it was just a lot of work for what I was given back.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really satisfied, and I think, it was kind of heading towards an area, of me potentially owning the business, which it's like, oh, why didn't you pursue that? But seeing what my boss was going through with his family, and how he wasn't around a lot of the time, I didn't want that for myself and to take over something like that. So I was sitting at home, and I, bought my house in 2019, started doing renovations, and I was like, maybe I should get into real estate, because I really ultimately would like to flip houses and do, designing and renovations on homes. So the first step is to get your license. So that's kind of where I kind of started getting into it and got my license, and then what a whirlwind, because it's not what I expected.
So you were at another office.
Yeah.
Little small backtrack. What did you think being a realtor would be like? What that looked like at your previous office, and how does that look like now at Addison Real Estate?
So I didn't really know what I was getting into per se, and being at the other office, I found that they really are heavily on your family and friends to get started. And I don't have any family in this country, right? Like, I came here from England and Australia, so all my family's overseas.
Yeah.
And, we have friends and whatnot, but no one at that age is buying houses, right? We're all poor.
I think everyone's priced out the market right now.
Yeah. So it was really hard, and it was kind of like, okay, well, how do I break into this? What do I do? And there, you don't get on the lead platforms until you have a couple of deals done, but it's like, well, how do you get
deals done?
Yeah,
so it's like a weird cycle.
Exactly. And I, when I got my real estate license, one of the workers here, she was also getting her license at the same time, and we became friends. And so she was like, "You should,
the good old Aunt Jean."
Yeah, AJ. So we arranged a meeting with Kelly, and I just felt really comfortable, and and what Kelly has to offer with Zillow and all of the other, sharing leads and everything like that, and the training, everything. It just kind of felt right to transition over.
When we first started, Kelly was taking the time as a super busy broker to have meetings with me, you, and one more person that was no longer with us. They didn't die. They just went to another office. But she took the time to sit down with us and go over different type of loans, and she was doing all the training by herself at the time.
Yeah, which I'm still learning about loans. Like, we learn every day, right? So I
think Dan, our lender, told us that the FHA guideline book is 4,000 pages long. So there's always
Thank God we have Dan.
I know.
That's all I'm saying.
We don't got to worry about that too much. We got to know how it functions, but all the nitty gritty details, we don't got to worry about it. So what was the difference between maybe was it work office environment or how they did business? What was the difference of where you were previously to Addison Real Estate? What's kind of that distinction?
I don't really know what to say, because I didn't feel like I was really a part of the other agency.
Did they have any meetings or anything?
No,
like
because I
events?
joined a team per se, but they, I don't want to talk really bad about it, but I just felt like I wasn't supported.
Yeah.
And I was very new. I mean, I was only there, I think, for 6 months before, you know, and in real estate, it really takes a long time to kind of build up your momentum and knowledge and everything. And yeah, so it's really hard. I mean, I don't think they had Zoom meetings, or because it was COVID as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like they were, I don't know, I guess the focus was the cold calling, which I never liked to do cold calling, you know, because I hate it. I mean, but that's my own, you know, hang up that I need to kind of get over. But there's nothing worse than, you know, getting spam calls, Isaiah. Like,
oh, yeah. I mean, listen,
know?
there's different forms of prospecting for everybody. If cold calling is not your thing, you always got something. But I think it sounds like maybe an office that was not willing to be flexible with different types of.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's no bad way of prospecting. They just have their trade-offs.
Right.
And you can be someone who does technically the worst form of prospecting, but you crush it because you love it and you can be consistent.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. So that kind of sounds what it is. Maybe you're at an office that they're like, nope, it's only cold calling. Like, well, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And you think about that in, like, education, right? Like, I have dyslexia, and going through school, it was really hard for me because, you know, at the time, I think there's a lot more out there now, but, you know, teaching was one way. And it's the same thing with, you know, translates into life and real estate. You can't just do and expect everybody to follow the same path, right? There's people that veer off and learn differently. Some people, you know, learn from visually, hearing, reading, you know, and I'm definitely not the reading side of things, but I'm very much a visual and hands-on person, so that's how I learn.
So do you mind if we go, like, talk about the dyslexia a little bit? Yeah. So how do you, when were you diagnosed with dyslexia, and how does it affect, or how would you overcome it? Because there's a lot of, you know, there's contracts and paperwork involved. So what kind of helps you manage that and go through that?
So I was diagnosed in Australia. I was having difficulty in school, and they put me into a program and discovered that I had it. So then when I came over in the 4th grade, it just kind of continued. But I think I was in 8th grade, and I had a 3rd grade reading level.
Wow.
So my parents put me in an outside school program, which kind of got me up to speed, so to speak. How I handle it now is if I don't know a word, I'll talk text into my cell phone. And or just, you know, copy and paste and spell check and everything. I mean, computers these days and phones are great for people with dyslexia.
Yeah.
But you kind of, I don't know, you just adapt, and it becomes part of your, you know, your routine, right? Like, you have a routine of running down the road. I would never do that, right? But it was very cold
yesterday. Yeah. Was there any tips and, like, these little hacks or tips and tricks that you did since starting this job with your dyslexia? Like, okay, when I come across this, I know I gotta do this, or whatever it may be. Oh, no, you just kind of adapted at this point?
Yeah, well, because I've been doing it since I was little, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
I've always done those tips and tricks, which I guess is, you know, talking into the cell phone or, you know, asking, how do you spell this, or something like that. But, I mean, the forms and everything that we use, the contracts, and they're pretty easy in a sense, right? Like, I mean, I remember, I'm sure you did too, the first contract you ever wrote, I think it took me an hour and a half.
Oh, it took me 2 hours.
Yeah, an hour and a half, 2 hours to write it up, and I think I reread the entire thing, like, 3 or 4 times to make sure I got it right.
I was sweating.
I can do it 20 minutes, right? It's what actually takes longer is importing the seller disclosure, the lead paint from you know what I mean? And then putting in the
email and the back. Yeah, that's
putting in the signatures and all of that's what actually takes more time for me than actually writing the contract.
And then you realize, well, not in the beginning, but you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours on that first contract because you're sweating. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to lose $600,000 if I don't write this right. And then all for the attorneys to be like, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
We're revamping
Cancel
this.
contract as written and blah, 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 blah.
It's just a standard. It's so annoying. That's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Are there some days where, like, I have no familiarity with dyslexia, so are there some days when it's worse than others?
No.
It's just like standard.
Yeah. For me, I mean, dyslexics, everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have it with numbers. Some people have it with reading.
Dyscalculia. Is that the other one?
I guess.
Yeah, I think it's dyscalculia.
So for me, I can't, like when I look at a word that I've never seen before, don't recognize, because I've memorized like all the words, right? Like what they look like, and that's kind of, it happens quickly in my brain. But words that I don't know, I have to sound out, but I don't recognize where the sounds start and stop, right?
Oh,
so you can look at a word and know that these 3 letters combine to make that sound to finish the rest of the word. I'm looking at it as individual letters and trying to, is it 2 letters? Is it 3 letters? Is it 2 letters? 3 letter, like, and so I have to try to work on different combinations to sound out a word that I recognize, and then I understand what the word is.
Oh,
so,
okay. And does that happen pretty quickly? Like it's you got down packed, or it takes a little bit?
It's manual. It's a manual thing. If I don't know the word at all, right? If I start sounding it out, I'm like, oh, it's, I don't know, an example.
Yeah. I had a
discovery. You know what I mean? Like so.
One of my best friends. He was one of my groomsmen in my wedding. He has dysgraphia.
Okay.
So. Don't kill me, internet, but roughly, what I think it's like the brain's disconnect with handwriting. So his handwriting is atrocious. Joe, I love you, but his handwriting is so bad. It's like hieroglyphics. And I remember in college, he would always ask professors, "Can I sit in the front of the class? I know I'm not supposed to have a laptop, but I'm just typing. I can't write. I have a thing." There was this one professor that was like, "No," and they had a final exam where he had to write an essay. And he was for weeks timing how fast he can write.
Yeah.
Poor Joe.
Yeah.
Poor Joe.
I had a time and a half for tests, so I could take whatever. If it was an hour test, I would have an hour and a half to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So SATs were horrible for me. It was
Oh
like
my
an
gosh.
8-hour test.
SATs are just garbage in general.
No, I did it once and that was it.
So I think with you like managing dyslexia and being a super successful agent, you absolutely crushed it in 2024. It's now 2025. And how far do you think you've come with Addison Real Estate, and how do you think it's impacted your business?
I think in the beginning I was very nervous and didn't have faith in myself because I didn't know the information, right? Like it was like I didn't know the ins and outs of different types of deals and the loan types and all of that. So it kind of made me kind of stuck in my shell. But with Addison Real Estate, I mean, we do our training all the time. We do once a week meetings, to which it could be just chit-chatting about what's going on in the industry. Or the other day we had our CRM training, and then we have, once a month or whatever, whatever it is, we have our training on certain subjects. Also had people in to talk about loans and title companies and all of that.
Bringing people in.
Yeah, and so that's a big help, because the more information you know, the easier it is to, adapt and be able to explain it to clients. And I think if you're open and honest with clients, they trust you. And and if you give them all the information that pertains to them, then it makes the deal a little bit easier because they are well informed and expecting and knowing what's happening next.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even information that a client would probably ever ask you.
Right.
But it's just having that background knowledge, and then you see like how the puzzle pieces connect. And now you're not just someone who sells homes, but you're someone who now understands the real estate industry just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you kind of become, you have a very firm foundation on your knowledge and your training and your experience.
Yeah.
For sure. With real estate being a brutal industry, how do you handle the highs and lows that come across? Do you do like any hobbies? You
Wine.
just wine? Like whining or alcohol?
Wine.
Wine.
Like the grapes.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I think the highs and lows, don't sweat the small things. It's behind you if it's already happened, and just keep looking forward. Mm-hmm. Also, we're a very family-oriented team at Addison Real Estate.
Big
so
time.
If you have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask the group, because you'll have 10 different opinions, and what works best for you in that scenario, you can kind of move forward. Kelly's always available for a call.
Yeah.
I've called her a couple times, like, don't know about this. Like, what do you think? And also a lot of times it's follow your gut as well. If it doesn't feel right, then it's not right.
Yeah.
Right.
Get that creepy lead call, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't know about this.
I mean, a prime example of that is the other day I had someone call me about land.
Yeah.
That they so-called owned.
Right.
And, he or she's out of state, in Florida. So it's like, okay, well, I can't meet the person because you really want to meet the people at the property.
Potential red flag number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I asked for, just to make sure you're the right person, can you send me your ID?
Yeah.
And he did. And it matched the person that was on the tax records and the address that was on the tax records. Let me dig a little bit further.
Yeah.
And then when I actually looked at the documents, because I wrote up the listing documents for it.
Oh, wow. So you went you were going to list it.
I was going to list it.
Oh, wow.
And I noticed that I had done it at 9:30 in the morning, but he had signed it at 7:30 in the morning. But when it came in on my email that he signed it, it was 10:30 when he signed it. So and I was like, oh. And then it was from California, essentially, because it was Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I thought you were in Florida. So
thank God for timestamps.
Yeah.
Wow.
I played a little bit dumb in the sense, and I was like, hey, let's jump on a FaceTime because I'd like to meet you. And just kind of go over the process of listing, what to expect. And I never heard from him again.
So what is the biggest misconceptions about realtors that people have?
I think the number one is the money, honestly. People think that we get thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per transaction.
We're all just millionaires.
Yeah, well, I wish. But, life happens. But, but no, I mean, it depends on how that lead came in. It depends on what kind of deal you have with your broker, right? There's a lot of little people with their hands in your pockets trying to, so what
people are always trying to take money from agents.
And it's like you what the sellers see going out or the buyers see going out in terms of a commission check. Say it's a $10,000 check, will very quickly go down to $3,000 sometimes because it's not only if it comes in through Zillow takes their cut with your broker as well. You have your expenses with driving around. You could have been driving around with these people for 6 months.
Yeah, so that's
right?
so much money.
And then there's also tax. We don't get taxed.
The nice IRS.
Yes, so I always put 30% right off the bat.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that I'll figure it out later. I like to know that I have the money in the bank, so when tax time comes, and whatever's left over is my little tax return for myself.
Yeah,
right?
some people are like, you need to do 30%. I'm like, yeah, but I like the tax return.
Dan says that to me all. He's like, you don't have to do 30%. I'm like, yeah, but it's it pays off some credit card bills or or a little extra, motorcycle money or
Yeah,
whatever.
I know. It
right?
makes me feel like I got one up on the IRS. Like,
Yes.
haha, I got some money back. Yeah, I think that is the biggest misconception, that because you see unfortunately, the obnoxious, $1 million listing, the agents on Instagram, that then the flashy cars. First of all, a lot of those people are baroque. First of all, they are leveraged out the wazoo. That's not their car. That is the broker's car, probably, who's driving the fancy car.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of them are broke agents, and it's just all a facade. I think when you look at the majority of agents, a huge majority, they're just normal people.
Yeah.
Just normal people, normal cars, normal lifestyles. They got kids. They got to go to a baseball game. They got to go to a track meet for their kids. They got a dog to walk. It's not this like flashy, obnoxious like thing. And selling Sunset, selling New York, that's not real.
No.
It happens, but it's just.
I mean, those $1 million listings and whatnot take a while to sell as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are people that are in that market and exclusive in that market, but the average real estate agent is not, right? Like we're dealing with $300,000 houses.
Yeah.
Luxury market starts at 800, right? So I mean, I guess my average is probably 400 or 500 range, right?
Yeah.
I've sold land for $20,000.
Probably lost money on that one.
I think I'd probably, $100 or whatever.
Good. That's a nice
Did not take taxes out on that. That's just a little pocket money, right? But, and then I've sold an over $1 million house as well. But the average is in this area as well, is probably around that like 400, 450 kind of range. Which you get a nice check, but it takes a while to close a house.
Yeah.
And get that person an accepted offer or bring in offers for the sellers. So.
The emotional stress.
Yes.
What was the emotional stress to the money ratio?
Oh, God, not enough. Unless you have good clients. And I fortunately have had really good clients and stayed in touch with them. And I'm actually going to one of my clients' birthday party next weekend.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So.
And how do you think the relationships have been? Did you expect to gain so many relationships doing real estate? Did you see it as just transactional in the beginning, or do you see it now like, oh wow, like I'm very involved in people's lives?
I think a bit of both. I think there are some clients that I really got along with, and to my fault, I should be following up with them a little bit more. But you get busy and you kind of move on with life or whatever. But I never really expect anything from anybody.
Yeah.
If they want to stay in touch, I'm really happy to do so. And then it's reciprocated as well, right? And works both ways.
Yeah.
But there are some clients that you had a really nice time with, and the deal is done, and you don't speak to them again or whatever, right?
There's some weird, like, there's some clients, and you can let me know if you have any examples. Some of them are like your best friends for 3 to 6 months, and then once you close, it's like
unsubscribe from everything.
Yeah,
and then
it's like like I'm texting you all on the holidays, like genuinely, and they like don't respond. It's like, okay. There's some clients where it was such a fast transaction, and then they like love you, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't expect I had this much of an impact. And then there's some clients where it's like, I went through the freaking ringer with you. Yeah. So, I kind of hope I get some extra thank yous.
Yeah.
But what's your experience?
And then there's also the clients where there is no, like, zhuzh in the relationship, right? Like, you kind of just went through the process with them. Yeah. You informed them and got them to the closing table and, helped them through the process. But then it's like, okay, we're done. Like, you were just a tool for them to obtain what they want, which is fine.
Yeah. And it's not that they were bad people. It's just they sometimes just don't, not that you don't click like it's bad.
Yeah. But. If you're going to be friendly with a client very quickly. You also know if you show a house and you're like, I'm never going to see that person again. Or, ooh, this person I'm going to be talking to every day, right?
Yeah.
So
I have a client. I closed with him. He was my first client ever, but second deal that closed. Closing got pushed. If you're a new agent, closing always gets pushed.
Oh yeah,
Closing never happens on the
never
day.
schedule your movers on the day that you write the contract for.
No, please no. But we closed in super late August or very early September of 2021. And like clockwork, he calls me about every 10 to 12 days and just talks about the home, talks about the kids, whatever it is. And it's nice. You just see you see the kids grow up. You go to the birthday parties. They're gonna be moving to another state soon. So you just have different relationships with people.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And do you have an uttermost nightmare client situation that you can think of?
Yes, I have. Well, I have a couple of nightmare deal.
Okay.
And a nightmare client.
Okay.
Or a couple of nightmare clients, but
Oh, I know.
it happens, right?
Yeah,
You don't win them every time. So, I'll start with a deal. I was representing the buyer in this situation, and the sellers were going through a very nasty divorce. The seller, she was living in her studio barn while he was in the house, and I guess they'd have to arrange for her to go into the house to, use bathroom, shower, whatever. And it was a very toxic, and what happened was that they were not communicating with each other because they couldn't, right? So, because it was just so volatile, I suppose, and I don't mean to kind of blow up people's spots or anything that, but what really, and my clients were fantastic. I think attorney review took 6 weeks.
Wow.
And it shouldn't have. It wasn't a complicated. Whoa. It wasn't a complicated sale, right? It wasn't like a commercial or land or whatever. It was just buy a house, right? So thank you, my clients, because they were such good troopers, and it got to a point where we were just cracking up and just well, we're getting there. We're almost getting there, and it really took me and the listing agent really communicating and being open and informative of what's happening on either side, to really get the deal kind of closed. So I think it took 4 or 5 months to close this property.
Wow.
And we had written into our contract that they could have a use and occupancy for 30 days, which they pushed to still keep, even though we were
under contract
4 months into the it's come on here, we've already given you that time, right, essentially. So but we got there in the end. I think it just was very stressful, and trying to not push people over the edge, and kind of just keep it moving forward. That client texted me a month after we closed and said that the former owner showed up to the house.
Really?
Yes, and basically he told her, he was like, you can't be here. This you're trespassing on my property at this point. You need to, respectfully, but you can't come back here just whenever you want to.
Yeah, there's a weird once maybe if sellers have lived on a property for a very long time, or they feel like they still have the rights.
Ownership of it.
It's still their house, and it's I don't know about that.
I feel that way with the house I grew up in Morristown.
Yeah,
I
got there
by
first,
and I was like, "That's my house. What are they doing to it?"
Yeah, you grew up somewhere, you lived somewhere, there's so many memories or bad stuff, and there's still an attachment to what happened in that spot. So I see it sometimes. I had one time a client buy it wasn't even a farm property. It was just a little corner lot, and they just raised a ton of farm animals, and it came with a koi pond. And then the seller was still living in town, whatever, and I had the ex-listing agent texting me, hey, the seller says the koi pond's not working like it should be. I'm like, first of all, How does he know? I mean, thank you.
Drive-bys.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I mean, like, that's good, but like, what is he still inspecting the property after he sold? It's like, what is your favorite type of house? Either to sell, look through, just kind of window shop from the outside. You know, what is your, if I need my dream home, what is it?
My dream home?
Yeah.
Old houses, like the historic houses. I grew up in one. The house in Morristown was built, I think, 1886 or 87.
Wow. It's almost haunted at that point.
It was haunted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's definitely ghosts in that house.
Okay, what are the spooky experiences you had in that house?
Which ones do I start with? Okay. The basement was creepy and freaky.
Yeah.
Whenever going down into the basement was fine. Being in the basement was fine. Whenever I was walking up the stairs from the basement into the kitchen, I felt like something was running after me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get the chills up my Then when you're sitting in the living room, there was a fireplace and there was a big mirror. And in the reflection of the mirror, you could see the stairs that went up. And how these stairs went up, they kind of curved around. So they went up. There was a landing, like a bay window, and then it went back up into the rest of the property, or the second floor.
Yeah.
So if you were watching TV, the mirror was here, and you could see the landing, and quite often I'd see things darting down the stairs in the mirror.
Oh, my God.
And there wasn't anything there.
How do you sleep at night? Like, if I legit lived in a haunted house, I would never sleep at night.
If they're not harming you, you're not harming them.
What are they doing? Just hanging out and freaking out? Like, I had friends that.
But I have been touched.
Houses.
I have been.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay, you gotta go into that. I just got chills. I like that stuff. Like, I don't watch scary movies.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. I genuinely just panic and anxiety thinking of that.
So, people have died in that house, and it's known that people have passed away.
Yeah.
And I think it's Scott. But you never know. It actually was. He was a gay man and passed away, unfortunately, of AIDS in the house. And I don't know how, probably about 50 years prior, or however long he was there previously. And my parents had a divorce, so it's just me, my sister, and my mom. So it's all females in the house for a while. And I had gone to bed really, really early. I was, for whatever reason, I was just like really tired. And probably about 8 o'clock at night, I just got into bed and fell asleep. So around like 4 o'clock in the morning, I was wide awake, essentially. Yeah. Kind of woke up, was laying in my bed, kind of like tossing and turning. And because it was dark, but there's still outside light coming in from the street lights and whatnot. Yeah. I thought I saw something kind of like a figure, kind of, on the other side of my room. And I was like, oh, it's weird, whatever. It's just a shadow, whatever. And I turn over, and I felt like there was something that was like staring at the back of my head.
Oh my God.
And like kneeling next to my bed.
Oh my God, no.
And I was like, I'm just freaking out, like whatever. It's just me playing tricks on myself. And then I was like, no, I really do feel this. And so I went to go turn over to turn on my light, and I got pinned. I was like kind of stuck. So people say it's sleep apnea and whatnot, but I was tossing and turning. I was moving around prior to that. And I felt like I was, there was pressure on my chest, and I couldn't move. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was probably like 5-10 seconds of this. But when you're in that position,
like
it's an eternity.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I really need to move now. This is kind of freaky. And I was like, no. And I moved over, turned on my light, and nothing was there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That is horrifying. And how long after that did you live in the home?
Probably 2 or 3 years.
Oh my God. I would have moved out like a month, like the day after. That's horrifying.
Yeah, well, yeah. If it happened again, I would have been
one time
sage
fine.
or something, Palo Santo, done some, had Jean, I didn't know at the time, but have her come over and.
We have a lot of agents that are into the spooky. I was interviewing David and Darina, and they have some spooky stories.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, well, when you walk into homes,
we had a spooky story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you came. We did.
Oh, the house.
Yes.
Yeah,
the
David
house.
spoke about that. He fell through the steps.
Yes. You were there.
I was there. That was a very sad house.
Yes.
It was sad.
Yeah.
You walk into homes, and after going into so many, you can just sit outside of it, and you're like, I kind of get a feel of what's going to go on in here. Just sad.
Yeah, well, I don't actually go in. Some agents go and turn on the lights in houses before the client gets there.
Yeah.
If I feel any kind of weirdness, I do not go into that house
Oh,
without
no.
a client.
Yeah.
way.
I'm like, I'm not dying alone. We're going to both die.
Yeah, exactly. Protect me, I'll protect you.
Yeah. It's not just me. We're both going to die. But you find... there are some homes that you can feel like it's very loving.
Yeah.
There's some homes you feel
cozy,
that...
warm.
Cozy, yep, yeah. Inviting. There's some homes that are, sad.
Yeah.
And it could be vacant, but it just has, a sadness to it. And then there's also homes where you feel like something's angry at me.
What happened here?
Yeah, something's angry, something's mad at me, and we're going to get out of here. And the clients feel it, too.
Yeah.
They feel it, too. It's homes are more than just four walls. That sounds weird, but it's true.
No, it's true. If the walls could talk, then,
Yeah.
So
I've heard of blood splatter on the walls.
Oh,
I've heard of things moving around during showings. I've heard of
nothing's like that's happened, but
No, not
other
yet.
than the B Mountain house.
Oh, yeah.
And we were pushing it. We were like, let's go on a
we
field trip.
Yeah, we were
Kelly was not happy with us.
Yeah, it was a little too much field trips there. But yeah, I guess to close this out, what would you say to any agent considering making a move or maybe not happy where they are? What would be your advice to them?
My advice is to understand yourself and what you want from a broker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a person that is happy to work in the corporate environment, or are you a person like me that needs something a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, and then go find that, right? And ask questions, even if you think it's silly, stupid, whatever. There's no wrong question, right? And also seek out, if you're looking for more the intimate environment, is the support system within that agency.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't necessarily need to come from the broker, but it could be a team member head that is very knowledgeable, that can guide you through it and get you to progress and grow and teach you all the, because laws change all the time.
Yeah.
So you need to be kind of up to date. But yeah, I guess that's my advice, is really just figure out what you want and then go and find it. Addison Real Estate is pretty much exactly what I needed and wanted. So I'm stuck here. I get calls all the time from other brokers and whatnot, like, hey, you want to come chit chat? And I'm like, I'll come and talk to you, but just let you know, I'm not going anywhere. No. So take your time with someone else.
Yeah. I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't think you can offer me any amount of money to go somewhere else.
Yeah. If I did go somewhere else, it would be that I'm moving out of state and I have to.
Yeah.
Or a different career.
No, I'm just so loyal and thankful for not only Kelly, but just the community of agents we have here.
Yeah.
I've learned so much, and everyone's so different. Everyone's so quirky in their own ways.
Don't make this growling.
It won't pick it up. Don't worry.
Good.
Everyone's so quirky in their own ways, and you just learn. And we're not attracting agents who are just copy paste.
Yeah.
We're attracting agents who are very different, and you're like, huh, I didn't know you can do that way.
Yeah.
And I think
I
it's a good
actually
time.
gave my card out to a client I showed a house to yesterday. Their son is taking his exam today.
Oh, okay.
And you know, and I actually was like, well, you need to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah. You need to come to Addison Real Estate, or that's it.
Obviously, I'm gonna, you know, kind of push for that, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he gets 1,000 other people saying, oh, you know, my cousin's part of this brokerage or whatever, and you know, go and talk to them, blah blah blah. But when I gave him my card, I was like, you know, call the office. I was like, my broker is very picky, though. I was like, it doesn't work both ways. Like the interview works both ways. And I was like, you really, like, she's not going to just take anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what's great about us is there's a weirdness about us.
Yeah.
About all of us.
You don't need just a pulse. You need a personality.
Yes.
But yeah, well, that is all for today. Thank you, Sophie, for joining the Addison Real Estate Podcast. If you're interested in whatever Sophie's got going on, you can follow her at her socials down below. Anything we have going on at Addison Real Estate will also be down below. Please stay around for the next videos I have coming up, and have a good one.
Bye.
Perfect.
All right.
Crushed it.